the shadowed corridors of the Stanley Hotel, nestled in the mountainous Estes Park, a single night's stay stirred the imagination of one of the most renowned horror writers of our time. It was here, amidst the grandeur and the whispered echoes of the past, that Stephen King conceived the chilling novel, The Shining. The hotel's secluded location and its storied walls, which have witnessed decades of history, became the eerie inspiration for the haunted Overlook Hotel, a place where fictional horrors would pale in comparison to whispered accounts of true ghostly encounters. Beyond its literary fame, this hotel harbours its own dark legacy of spectral residents, each with a tale that blurs the lines between the veil of the afterlife and our own. What secrets do these halls keep, and what stories are yet to be told? Join us as we peel back the layers of mystery that shroud the Stanley Hotel, revealing stories so unsettling they beckon us to question the very essence of the supernatural. Before Stephen King ever set foot in its halls, the Stanley Hotel stood as a beacon of early American ingenuity and vision, carved from the rugged wilderness of Colorado and framed against the vast open sky. In the early 1900s, Freelan Oscar Stanley, struck by the debilitating effects of tuberculosis, ventured to the Rocky Mountains on the advice of his doctor, seeking the clean, dry air that Estes Park famously offered. The dramatic improvement in his health inspired a profound transformation. From these serene surroundings, F.O. Stanley, a man already known for his co-invention of the Stanley steamer automobile, envisaged a grand retreat, not just for himself, but for the growing number of consumptives seeking respite. By 1909, this vision had materialized into the majestic Stanley Hotel, a gleaming white structure of colonial revival architecture that stood in stark contrast to the rustic lodges typical of the area. With its expansive verandas and panoramic views of the Rocky Mountains, the hotel quickly became a symbol of luxury and an escape for the elite of the early 20th century. Electricity, telephones, and automobiles, luxuries quite rare in such remote locations, were staples at the Stanley, heralding a new era of modernity in the secluded hills of Colorado. But the Stanley was more than just a hotel. It was a cultural hub that helped shape the development of Estes Park. The town, which had lingered quietly in the shadows of the mountains, began to thrive under the influence of Stanley's entrepreneurial spirit and his steadfast belief in the area's potential. The hotel attracted tourists, adventurers, and health seekers, all drawn not only to its opulent offerings, but also to the healing qualities of its environment, thus cementing Estes Park's reputation as a resort community. As we explore its corridors and stories further, we discover that the Stanley Hotel's true essence extends beyond the spectral and supernatural. Its real impact is woven into the very stone and timber that give shape to its walls. What stories do these materials tell, and how do they contribute to the legacy that is only beginning to be uncovered? As the Stanley Hotel's foundations settled into the landscape of Estes Park, its doors opened to a new chapter that echoed with the genteel clink of high society. It was an era marked by elegance, where the grandeur of the hotel's design and its modern amenities drew the wealthy and the well-to-do from across the nation. They came not only for the pristine mountain air and breathtaking views, but also for the reputed health benefits that this luxurious haven offered, especially to those battling tuberculosis. At a time when the White Plague was sweeping through the cities of America, the Stanley Hotel emerged as a sanctuary. Tuberculosis patients, drawn by testimonials of Freelan Oscar Stanley's own remarkable recovery attributed to the high altitude and dry air, flocked to Estes Park, seeking similar cures. The hotel provided them not just with refuge, but with a certain level of sophistication and comfort that was uncommon in typical sanatoriums of the period. Lavish ballrooms, Fine dining and impeccably landscaped grounds offered a gentle reprieve from the harsh regimens typically associated with tuberculosis treatment. This fusion of medical retreat and luxury resort attracted a diverse array of guests, from European aristocrats to American tycoons, all seeking health and leisure in equal measure. The Stanley's allure was undeniable, with its promise of rejuvenation and social prestige, making it a centerpiece in the social calendars of the elite. Yet, beneath the surface of this opulent escape, whispers of the supernatural began to stir. Rumours that would eventually weave themselves into the fabric of the Stanley's legacy. The Stanley, it seems, was always destined to be more than just a hotel. Amid the opulence and whispered tales of the Stanley Hotel, a new chapter was unknowingly penned one crisp October night in 1974. Stephen King, already a burgeoning master of horror, found himself a guest in this grand establishment, almost by a twist of fate. The hotel, preparing to shut down for the winter season, held a lingering atmosphere of isolation and eerie quietude that night, as King and his wife were the only overnight guests. The setting was ripe for inspiration. King, wandering the empty corridors and vast lounges of the Stanley, felt the weight of its solitude press upon him. It was in room 217, under the dim light of a lone bulb, that a vivid nightmare seized him. A dream of his young son screaming, terrorized by a fire hose he imagined to be a malevolent creature. Waking in a cold sweat, King stepped out to a moonlit balcony. And there, overlooking the hotel's hedge sculptures and the rocky mountains beyond, the bones of the Shining assembled themselves in his mind. Specific elements of the Stanley directly threaded into the fabric of his novel. Room 217, where King had slept, retained its haunting legacy in the book, becoming a focal point of supernatural occurrences. The grand isolated setting of the Stanley became the Overlook Hotel, a place possessed by its own sinister history, where the past lingered as palpably as the chill of the Colorado air. The long, empty hallways, the grandiose yet desolate ballroom, were all mirrored in King's chilling narrative. As King crafted his story, the Stanley's haunting ambience breathed life into the Overlook, blending reality and fiction into a tapestry of terror. The hotel's influence was profound, shaping the novel's atmosphere, a testament to the power of place in the alchemy of storytelling. What began as a brief stay turned into a cornerstone of horror literature, forever linking the Stanley Hotel with an iconic tale of psychological horror and supernatural dread. Within the walls of the Stanley, the thin veil between reality and the horrors that fiction mirrors becomes ever more elusive, inviting one to question just where one ends and the other begins. The grand legacy of the Stanley Hotel is inseparably intertwined with its founders, Freelan Oscar Stanley and his wife Flora. Flora Stanley, an accomplished pianist and a socialite, brought a touch of grace and cultural refinement to the frontier, making the Stanley a beacon of high society and one of the most popular retreats in the area. Today, many guests report encounters with the Stanleys, suggesting that their spirits have chosen to linger in the very space they cherished in life. Freeland's apparition is often cited in the billiards room, where he was known to enjoy leisurely games, and in the administration office, overseeing the running of his beloved hotel, as if ensuring his standards are upheld. These sightings are described with a clarity that transcends mere ghostly whispers. Witnesses report a distinguished gentleman, sometimes with a soft, welcoming smile, indicative of Mr. Stanley's known genial nature. Flora's spiritual presence is most felt in the music room, a space where she spent much of her time entertaining guests with her piano performances. It is here that visitors report eerie yet beautiful piano music playing autonomously. The music, often identified as Flora's favourite pieces, starts when the room is empty, as if she performs unseen to an invisible audience. The keys have been seen moving on their own, a spectral performance that leaves those who witness it in awe, and sometimes in a slight shiver of delight or fear. The manifestations of Flora and F.O. Stanley are not just tales. They are part of a greater narrative that the hotel embraces, with these personal stories enhancing the historic and eerie allure of the Stanley. Each report of their sightings, each note heard from an empty piano, connects the tangible history of the Stanley with the intangible mystery of the afterlife. As visitors walk through the Stanley, the legends of its founders not only recount a history, but also breathe life into the stone and woodwork of the Grand Hotel, ensuring that the legacy of the Stanleys remains as vivid and enduring as the structure they built. Amid the many hauntings of the Stanley Hotel, the tale of Room 217 stands distinct, etched into the fabric of its history, with a blend of tragedy and enduring mystery. This room, which Stephen King famously occupied, is haunted by the ghost of Elizabeth Wilson, a housekeeper who met with misfortune in the early 20th century. In the year 1911, during a stormy night, an explosion caused by a gas leak injured Elizabeth while she was lighting the acetylene lanterns in room 217. The blast was significant enough to send her through the floor into the dining room below, yet, remarkably, she survived the ordeal. Elizabeth, affectionately known as Mrs. Wilson, continued to work at the hotel for many years after her recovery, eventually passing away in the 1950s. However, her spirit appears to have never left the premises of room 217. Guests who stay in this room report a variety of unexplained phenomena: lights flickering on and off, doors mysteriously opening and closing, and belongings being inexplicably unpacked. Some have even felt a cold presence, suggesting the lingering spirit of Mrs. Wilson still tends to her duties, perhaps wary of the safety of the hotel's guests. The legend of Elizabeth Wilson has been a focal point for those intrigued by the paranormal, her story intertwining with the lore of the hotel itself. It was this very room and its ghostly inhabitant that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. After he spent a restless night there, his imagination fired by the eerie energy of the room. Her presence in room 217 serves as a poignant reminder of the Stanleys' storied past, where each creak and whisper in the walls is a verse in the ongoing narrative of this historic hotel. The spectral presence in room 428 at the Stanley Hotel adds an unsettling chapter to its haunted history. Here, the ghost of a cowboy has become a familiar encounter for many guests. Room 428, located at the hotel's corner, is often described by visitors as having an unusual atmosphere even before the apparition appears. Guests report a distinct feeling of being watched, and some mention an unexpected chill or a sudden breeze that seems to come from nowhere, despite the room's windows being closed. This peculiar cowboy figure is consistently described as wearing a traditional long coat and a Stetson hat, which obscures his eyes. The cowboy's behavior is noted for being somewhat interactive compared to other spectral sightings at the Stanley. While he typically starts by sitting quietly in the corner of the room, he occasionally stands and moves closer to the bed. Guests have reported waking to find him looming near, looking as though he wishes to communicate something urgent, yet unable to articulate his thoughts. These interactions, though never harmful, leave visitors with a profound sense of unease and curiosity about his origins. While specific details about the identity of the cowboy ghost in room 428 of the Stanley Hotel remain elusive, the accounts from guests and the enduring folklore provide a rich backdrop for his presence. Historically, the area around Estes Park, where the Stanley Hotel is located, was frequented by cowboys and frontiersmen in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It's possible that the cowboy could be the spirit of one of these historical figures, perhaps someone who had a connection to the land before the hotel was even conceived. Local legends sometimes suggest that he could have been involved in a tragic incident near the property, which might explain his restless, lingering presence. This haunting not only contributes to the Stanley Hotel's allure as a hotspot for paranormal enthusiasts, but also offers a window into the rich tapestry of local history and legend. The recurring visits from the cowboy in room 428 serve as a stark reminder that the hotel, much like the surrounding Rocky Mountains, is steeped in stories of the past. Some visible, others as shadowy as the figure who roams its rooms. Each encounter with him adds another layer to the enigmatic charm that the Stanley Hotel embodies, bridging the gap between the historic Wild West and the contemporary experiences of its guests. Beyond the cowboy's haunting solitude in room 428, The concert hall at the Stanley Hotel hosts its own assembly of spectral inhabitants, each with a distinct narrative that adds depth to the hotel's haunted chronicles. Among the most renowned spirits are Paul, a former handyman of the hotel, and Lucy, a woman who is believed to have sought refuge in the concert hall after being homeless. Paul's presence in the concert hall is marked by a protective attitude towards the space he once maintained. Employees and guests report hearing him say, "Get out," a phrase often whispered in the lower levels of the hall, particularly when staff are closing up for the night. This protective behavior is complemented by more benign interactions, such as flickering lights or shifting objects, acts that remind the living of his perpetual watch over the hall. Lucy's spirit, on the other hand, is often associated with a more playful and sometimes melancholic demeanor. Her story is particularly poignant. Believed to have been a young woman without a home, Lucy found the concert hall a temporary shelter before she was discovered and forced out into the harsh Colorado winter. Her presence is frequently acknowledged through cold spots, disembodied giggles, and sudden manipulations of the concert hall's lighting systems. Guests and staff alike report feeling a sense of sadness intertwined with warmth, as if Lucy is both mourning her fate and expressing gratitude for the attention and acknowledgement she receives from the living. Together, Paul and Lucy's continued hauntings make the concert hall a focal point for paranormal investigations and tours. As casual visitors wander through the iconic concert hall, they might be in for an unexpected encounter with Paul and Lucy, whose spirited antics continue to enliven the old venue. Whether it's a sudden chill in the air hinting at Lucy's passing presence, or an unexplained sound echoing Paul's protective whispers, these spectral residents ensure that a stroll through the Stanley is anything but ordinary. From the playful and somber echoes of Paul and Lucy in the concert hall, the atmosphere shifts as we ascend to room 401, where the presence of Lord Dunraven, an English aristocrat who once owned much of the land on which the hotel now stands, imparts a distinctly different essence. Though Lord Dunraven never resided in the hotel, indeed the hotel was constructed years after his departure from Estes Park, his connection to the location remains palpably felt. Known during his life for his ambitious land acquisitions and his somewhat controversial efforts to turn the area into a private hunting preserve, Dunraven's legacy is as complex as the hauntings attributed to him. Guests and staff at the Stanley frequently report an array of mysterious phenomena, specifically in room 401, often associated with Lord Dunraven's presence. The most distinctive sign is the strong scent of pipe tobacco, Dunraven's preferred smoke during his lifetime, which inexplicably permeates the room despite a clear absence of any tangible source. Moreover, visitors often speak of feeling an unseen presence, with some describing a sensation of being closely watched or even gently touched, particularly women, reflecting perhaps Dunraven's reputed fondness for the company of ladies during his lifetime. These encounters are sometimes accompanied by more visible disturbances. Windows that open by themselves, sudden cold drafts, or curtains that flutter in still air. On occasion, guests have even heard a disembodied voice, believed to be Dunraven's, murmuring indistinctly, adding an auditory layer to the haunting. The unexplained occurrences in room 401 enhance the lore surrounding the Stanley Hotel, highlighting a unique spectral narrative. The peculiar and vivid phenomena experienced by guests, not just the scent of his tobacco or the mysterious movements of curtains, but also the less tangible feelings of a lingering presence, paint a vivid picture of a man whose earthly passions seem to have followed him into the afterlife. These encounters invite guests to ponder the layers of history beneath their feet and the personalities that shaped them, preparing them to explore further into the storied halls and rooms of the Stanley, where each shadow and whisper adds to the unfolding saga of this historic hotel. As we continue along the 4th floor of the Stanley Hotel, the atmosphere shifts distinctly. Once the servants' quarters, this area carries the echoes of its past, not through visible remnants, but through the audible traces of invisible inhabitants. Particularly in room 418, guests report hearing the sounds of children playing, a giggling chorus that fills the hallways when no child is in sight. The fourth floor's reputation for these ghostly occurrences is well documented by both staff and visitors. The sounds of laughter and running feet are often heard in the dead of night, when the corridors are empty and the living guests are asleep. These are not just fleeting noises. Many report them as vividly resonant, as real as any live sounds, yet with no discernible source. Some paranormal enthusiasts speculate that these sounds could be examples of a stone tape phenomenon, where emotions or events are imprinted onto the environment and replay under certain conditions. This theory posits that the youthful energy and emotions of the past servants' children have been recorded by the very fabric of the building, replaying for today's ears. The Stanley's isolated location meant that historically, many staff members resided on the premises, and their children would have played in these corridors, their laughter permeating the walls and perhaps becoming a permanent imprint on the fabric of the building. With each step through this historic corridor, the boundary between the past and present seems to blur, inviting guests to not only listen, but to feel the vibrant history that whispers from the walls. These echoes guide us. They pave the way to deeper explorations into the Stanley's unseen and unheard legends, where each corner holds a new mystery to uncover. From the echoes of children's laughter along the fourth floor, our journey through the Stanley Hotel brings us to one of its most visually striking features, the grand staircase. Here, amid the opulent woodwork and stately ambience, a different spectral resident is said to linger, known as the staircase phantom. This ghostly figure has been captured not just in stories but also in numerous photographs taken by guests and paranormal investigators alike. The staircase phantom is frequently described as a faint, ethereal form that appears on the stairs, often during the late hours of the evening or in the dim twilight of early morning. Some guests report seeing a fleeting shadow or a misty outline, while others have caught more defined images of what appears to be an elegant figure dressed in period clothing, hinting at the hotel's long and storied past. These sightings on the staircase have sparked a wave of interest among paranormal enthusiasts and skeptics alike, drawing them to this architectural centerpiece in hopes of capturing their own evidence of the Stanley's hauntings. The allure of this particular phantom is enhanced by its seeming preference for dramatic appearances, often when the grandeur of the staircase is bathed in the soft glow of the chandelier overhead, creating a perfect backdrop for such an enigmatic presence. The origins of the staircase phantom remain shrouded in mystery, with some speculating that it could be one of the many former guests or residents of the hotel, perhaps even one of the Stanley family members themselves. Whatever its origins, the presence of this phantom adds a compelling layer to the hotel's ambience, inviting all who visit to gaze a little longer and a bit more closely at the surroundings, pondering who might have ascended these steps in a bygone era. Leaving the solemn mystery of the grand staircase and its phantom behind, we encounter a lighter, more whimsical haunting within the Stanley Hotel's walls. In the pet-friendly rooms, guests have reported sightings of a ghostly cat, adding an unexpectedly charming element to the hotel's array of spirits. This spectral feline, often described as a small grey figure, is seen sauntering through rooms or leaping onto beds with a ghostly grace that only a cat could possess. The reports of this ghostly pet are both intriguing and endearing to guests, many of whom have felt the cat curl up at the foot of their beds. The sensation is so real that it's only upon reaching out to pet it that they find nothing but air. Others have heard the faint sound of purring or the soft padding of paws across the floor in the middle of the night. This feline apparition is believed to be a former resident pet, lingering in its once beloved home. The hotel, with its long-standing policy of welcoming pets, seems to have provided not just a temporary retreat for its human guests, but also a lasting sanctuary for at least one of its more elusive animals. This adds a layer of comfort to the hotel's atmosphere, suggesting that the Stanley offers a place of rest and peace, not just to its human visitors but to creatures of all kinds. The presence of this ghostly cat reminds us that not all spirits must inspire fear. Some, like our feline friend, seem to weave themselves into the fabric of daily life at the hotel, offering a gentle reminder of the warmth and life that once filled these rooms. From the gentle reminders of a ghostly feline's presence, We shift to a more spirited corner of the Stanley Hotel, the old bar. Here, the tale of the mischievous bartender adds a playful note to the hotel's haunting repertoire. This former bartender, whose identity remains a mystery, apparently hasn't quite retired. According to staff and guests alike, the spirit still tends the bar, where glasses and bottles move of their own accord, often when the bar is quiet and the air is thick with the past. The phenomenon is most noticeable when the bar is closed to the public, with employees reporting the sound of clinking glassware and the sight of bottles shifting gently on the shelves. On some occasions, the ice scoop moves by itself, scooping ice into glasses that were set out for cleaning, as if preparing for a ghostly cocktail hour. These activities are accompanied by an occasional inexplicable whiff of liquor or tobacco smoke, as though the bartender is just out of sight, enjoying a quick break. The playful nature of these hauntings brings a lighter side to the spectral happenings at the Stanley. Unlike some of the hotel's more eerie tales, the story of the mischievous bartender seems to evoke amusement and curiosity rather than alarm. This spirit appears to be tied to the bar out of fondness for his former occupation, a reminder that not all who linger in the Stanley do so out of unrest or tragedy. The lively atmosphere of the old bar, where echoes of laughter and chatter seem just a moment away, highlights the playful side of the Stanley Hotel's hauntings. Unlike the hotel's more chilling tales, the story of the mischievous bartender evokes amusement and a touch of nostalgia. This spirit, seemingly fond of his former occupation, reminds us that not all who linger do so from unrest or tragedy. The ongoing antics of this ghostly bartender not only enliven the old bar, but also invite guests to reflect on the joy that once permeated this space. Our journey through the Stanley Hotel's spectral landscape now brings us to room 302, located in the older, more time-worn section of the hotel. Here, the haunting takes on a more subtle yet deeply unsettling form with the whispering woman, whose presence is marked not by bold apparitions, but by soft, elusive whispers that drift through the room at night. Guests who stay in room 302 often report a disconcerting experience. As the lights dim and the silence of the night deepens, whispers begin to fill the room, gentle and almost soothing, yet impossible to fully grasp or understand. These whispers hover at the edge of audibility, sometimes sounding as though they are murmuring secrets just beyond the listener's comprehension. The origin of these whispers remains a mystery, with no clear story or history to explain who this woman might be, or why her voice remains imprinted in the fabric of the room. The eerie quality of these whispers often leaves guests feeling as though they are not alone, that they share the room with an unseen occupant who communicates in hushed tones. This sensation is particularly intense in the quiet hours before dawn, creating an atmosphere that is both intriguing and unnerving. The whispering woman of room 302 adds a deeply psychological element to the Stanley's hauntings, challenging guests to listen closer, perhaps even to understand the words being spoken. Leaving room 302 and its occupant behind, whispers seem to echo in our minds, a persistent reminder that the Stanley Hotel communicates its past in both shouts and murmurs. Each tale uncovered during our exploration contributes to a rich narrative, blending the seen with the unseen and compelling us to listen more intently to the quiet voices of history that resonate throughout this storied establishment. Transitioning from the ethereal whispers of room 302, we delve into the Stanley Hotel's savvy embrace of its spectral fame in the realm of pop culture and tourism. As the legend of the hotel's hauntings grew, particularly fueled by its association with Stephen King's The Shining, the management acknowledged and capitalized on its ghostly reputation by introducing themed tours that cater to the curiosity of paranormal enthusiasts and horror fans alike. These tours guide visitors through the hotel's most haunted locations, offering stories of past sightings and unexplained events that have been reported over the years. Each tour is steeped in the lore of the hotel's many spirits, from the playful to the chilling, turning the Stanley into a destination for those seeking an encounter with the paranormal. In a nod to its cinematic legacy, The hotel also installed a hedge maze in 2015, reminiscent of the iconic labyrinth in the film adaptation of The Shining. Though not a part of King's original novel, the maze has become a symbol associated with the story due to its presence in the film. The maze at the Stanley offers guests an immersive experience, allowing them to meander through its pathways while perhaps half expecting to turn a corner and come face to face with their own eerie tale. These attractions not only enhance the hotel's haunted reputation, but also play a significant role in its modern identity as a cultural icon. They bridge the gap between the Stanley's historical significance as a luxury hotel and its contemporary status as a haven for ghost stories and gothic allure. This blending of the paranormal with pop culture ensures that the Stanley Hotel remains a compelling destination for visitors from around the world, eager to explore its halls and maybe catch a glimpse of something supernatural. Building on its reputation as a hub for paranormal enthusiasts and cinematic history, the Stanley Hotel has cemented its place in popular culture. The hotel's allure transcends the physical realm, reaching into the world of media, where it has been featured in numerous television shows, documentaries, and films that celebrate the supernatural. Notably, the Stanley has been highlighted in shows like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures, where paranormal experts attempted to uncover the mysteries embedded in its walls, captivating audiences worldwide. Moreover, the Stanley Hotel's connection to Stephen King has drawn literary enthusiasts from across the globe. As the inspiration behind The Shining, the hotel has become a pilgrimage site for fans of King's work, eager to experience the eerie atmosphere that sparked one of his most famous novels. This literary tie has enriched the hotel's narrative, adding a layer of literary depth that complements its ghostly fame. Throughout the year, the Stanley hosts a variety of events that celebrate its spooky heritage and literary significance, including murder mystery dinners, horror film festivals, and a Stephen King tour that highlights specific locations related to King's stay and subsequent writings. These events not only honor the hotel's past, but also enhance its cultural footprint, ensuring that the Stanley remains relevant in the public imagination as a place where the boundaries between reality and fiction are intriguingly blurred. As the Stanley Hotel continues to inspire fear, fascination, and artistic expression, it stands as a testament to how deeply a single location can influence culture and entertainment. Its walls do not just house the echoes of the past, they inspire new stories, continuing to make the Stanley a beloved icon in both the paranormal and literary worlds. In the hallowed halls of the Stanley Hotel, where the boundaries of time and reality blur, a legacy of hauntings and lore has been cemented by both true events and woven tales. The hotel's history, rich with real ghost stories from the spectral likes of Flora Stanley to the whispering woman of room 302, intertwines seamlessly with the fictional horrors inspired by Stephen King's vivid imagination. This blend has transformed the Stanley into more than just a hotel. It has become a legendary site of the paranormal, where each creak and whisper adds to its mystique as one of America's most haunted destinations. Reflecting on the enduring allure of the Stanley, its continued draw is undeniable. As the sun dips below the Rocky Mountains, casting long shadows over its iconic facade, the hotel seems to whisper invitations to those who seek to explore its mysteries. The faint sounds of a piano echoing through its corridors, or the soft, eerie giggles of ghostly children playing on the 4th floor, serve as a siren call to the curious and the brave. The Stanley Hotel does not just reside in Estes Park. It lives in the heart of every guest who has walked its haunted rooms, inspired by its eerie beauty and the tales that permeate its walls. As we fade out on the haunting visage of the Stanley at dusk, with the echo of ghostly whispers and distant piano music lingering in the air, we are reminded that some places hold more than just memories. They hold a presence, a spirit of their own, forged from the stories of those who have passed through their doors, both living and spectral. The Stanley Hotel remains an enigmatic beacon, calling to those who are drawn to the shadowy line between the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen, the past and the present.